Welcome back to Open Line. We are streaming now live on our Facebook page. So if you want to join the conversation and put a comment in the comments section as we stream this live on our Facebook page, please feel free to do that. I'll read some of those comments on the air, talking about should people be allowed to run a business out of their homes in Nashville. Currently, there's a law that prohibits that. There are two attorneys here who are fighting on behalf of people who want to operate a business in their home. We have Braden Busek with the Beacon Center and Keith Diggs with the Institute for Justice. We kind of set this up at the top of the show, and I know some people on Facebook are just joining us. But all right, let's take an in-depth sort of look at both your clients. There are two clients here. And why don't each of you take one and kind of give us an in-depth look? Braden, you start.
Yeah, sure. So I'll take Lidge. He's the studio owner. He's a single dad raising a beautiful young girl, and he lives in East Nashville and has this home recording studio. It's a celebrated home studio, independent studio. It makes a very well-renowned podcast, among other things, and he works with a lot of really great working musicians in Nashville. And his story is he was operating his studio, the Toy Box Studio, for many, many years, free from complaint, free from molestation from any of his neighbors, when one day, like a bolt from the gods, he got a call from Metro telling him that his business was illegal and he needed to shut it down. And when he called and asked them for clarification, they even threatened him with potentially getting a warrant and seizing some of his equipment. And I mean, you know, this is a person who cannot just up and move his business somewhere else. You can't tell somebody who's running a studio, just go somewhere else. I mean, he's got considerable investments invested in his existing property, and he can't just go and move somebody else. So this really was a life-changing event for him, and it was based on a purely anonymous complaint.
That would be my concern, though, that it must have been a neighbor who had some problem and must have called Metro and said there's a business going out of here, and whether it's too many cars, and we address this at the top, or too loud or whatever, there was some problem, and I guess that would be the concern. There may be neighborhood groups or something that are concerned about opening the door for having businesses run out of homes.
So a couple of points on that. Number one, nobody in Nashville complains when their neighbor runs a home studio. That's a gem, right? That enhances your property value when you live next to somebody with a home studio. It's a classic Nashville story. It's what makes it special to live in Nashville. Secondly, there's no reason to think that a neighborhood or a neighbor complained. These are purely anonymous complaints. And to your point, I think you sort of alluded at it, that is just a system that is rife with the potential for abuse. Maybe it was a neighbor with a legitimate concern, though it's doubtful, but it could have just as easily been a developer that wants to shut his business down so they can take his property because it's in a hot neighborhood. Who knows? There's no way of knowing. But third and finally, Lidge, when he sought to try and fix this law, went around to all of his neighbors with a tray of cookies and his little girl asking for their support. And to a man, all of his neighbors were supportive of what it is he's trying to do. So it isn't just home studios in general, it is Lidge in particular. He has the full support and adoration of everybody in his community. That's not the reason why his business was suddenly taken from him.
And then, okay, let's talk about the other client that you have. So one is operating the studio out of the home. What's the other client?
Yeah, so Pat Rayner is a widow in her 60s who about 10 years ago had the idea to take her hairstyling practice, which she's had for years, and move it into her home. This allows her to save on paying rent at a commercial studio and just use the home she's already paying a mortgage on. So when her husband died, she had this idea to move into her home and actually went to the State Board of Cosmetology and got a license for a residential shop that said totally complied with the law. About 7 months after she opened, she got an anonymous letter in the mail from Codes saying that she was accused of operating an illegal business and threatening her with $50 a day fines for every day she'd ever cut hair in her home.
And so she is suing.
Yes.
And again, if we don't know if it's a neighbor who was upset about cars coming in, we don't know the nature of the complaint.
No, she actually asked the officers when they came to inspect her garage who had complained, and they said they couldn't tell her.
Okay. All right, let's go to Beverly. Hello, Beverly?
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
The what?
What's on your mind, Beverly? Go right ahead.
Well, I just got through telling somebody what was on my mind.
Well, tell them again. Tell us again, because now you're on.
Okay. Hi.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind, Beverly?
I am calling about the guy that's wanting the recording studio on Brasher Avenue. I am a neighbor. I live on Brasher Avenue myself, and his first petition, I signed it. I did not really realize what I was doing, but when it went before the BCA, that made me realize what could happen. If he was the only one that would ever do anything like that, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But if he's allowed to do it, it's going to open up a whole can of worms, and I am not for him doing that.
And you live on the street where he is?
I do. Yes, I do. And if he's allowed to do it, don't tell how many businesses could be right here in our neighborhood.
And now they're saying, though, that their noise ordinance that would be enforced and the parking is not a problem. Do you disagree with that?
I disagree with that.
And why?
Well, because like I said, if he's allowed to do it, then how could anybody else be told no, they can't do it?
Yeah, it would be everybody in their house could have a business. Okay, I appreciate your call. Thank you, Beverly. All right, so what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate Beverly's viewpoint on it, but I don't think we have to fear the whole can of worms scenario, because a very clear line can be drawn. Home businesses of the sort that Liz wants to run already exist in neighborhoods across Tennessee and across Nashville, and including this particular neighborhood. Again, we are not advocating to open up a steel foundry anywhere in Beverly's neighborhood. My guess is that Beverly probably didn't even know that Lidge's studio was operating there until he knocked on her door and politely asked her for support, which she gave. These are not businesses that any neighbor would have to be concerned about. Again, like I used the example earlier about when I was young, I took swimming lessons in a Nashville neighborhood. And that didn't open up a can of worms to all other sorts of manner of businesses coming in there. But, swimming lessons is just but one example. I mean, Nashvillians of all stripe are getting tutoring, are getting yoga instructions, are getting piano lessons. All of these are the sorts of things that are home businesses that operate every day in Nashville neighborhoods, most of whom don't even know they're operating illegally. And most of their neighbors don't even know that they're operating illegally. And so those are the sorts of businesses that I think are like Lidge's, and that we can open up to residential neighborhoods without fear that we're really going to be changing the complexion of a Nashville neighborhood.
And if I guess her worry then is, boy, every house in her neighborhood is going to be some small business. And I guess if you were to take it to its farthest possible conclusion, that would be allowed. What you're saying, that would be allowed. Everybody could run a business out of their home. You're saying she shouldn't be worried about that? I guess why? What do you say to her again when she is worried about that? Every house in her neighborhood could become a small business.
Well, typically you never find out they're there in the first place. That's the entire point of our lawsuit, is that you can't see them. And even under Nashville's existing law, Lidge could open up an Airbnb and record his guests if he wanted to. It's just that he can't officially have business customers over. The Nashville ordinance also allows you to have an employee in your home, which plenty of people do already, and there doesn't seem to be any trouble with that.
Okay, let's go to Joe. Hello, Joe?
Yeah.
Joe, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, pretty much every musician in Nashville already has a recording studio in their business or in their home. And the other kicker here is the union has allowed recently people to fly tracks back and forth to each other from their home studios. So that's the musicians union. That's a new law that just happened recently. But the key is 99.9% of the people are not even going to know that there's a studio in the home. So you have to run as a musician, which Music City is pretty much, it's called Music City because of the musicians. Everybody has the right to be able to record music in their own home and make money off of it, whether it's film and TV stuff and they're doing it in their basement and nobody can hear them. It doesn't matter. The point is 99.9% of the people that are musicians already have studios, because everybody's got Pro Tools nowadays.
So you support the right of musicians to have a studio, and what about a hairdresser? What about some other type of business? Do you think they're all okay?
I think that pretty much any kind of business that's a legit business is okay. I mean, a hairdresser, say a nail salon, or, you know, a dog grooming place, whatever, as long as it's not a massive amount of traffic, it's fine. But, you know, anywhere in the world that I can think of, you can have a business out of your home, and it's not a big deal. You know, I heard about this law a few years ago, and I was like, that's absolutely crazy. And now there's going to be so many businesses in Nashville that are technically illegal because of that law, but they're not going to stop them anyway. So you're going to have a massive amount of people doing illegal activity out of their home. Okay, well, let's talk about everything you're bringing up. Thank you, Joe. I guess you agree with Joe.
Yeah, Joe, great call. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the main point to point out of that, and let's just say it needs to be said once in the show, it is illegal to make music in Music City. Let's just say that again. It is illegal to make music in Music City. We have criminalized piano instructions. We have criminalized home studios. And that is just patently inconsistent with the best traditions of Nashville. You know, nobody complains when they find out there's a home studio in their neighborhood. That's something to welcome. People are really glad about that. It's what makes Nashville quirky and different and great. And you know, Lidge is just one of the best traditions of Nashville overall. And I mean, Joe makes another good point too, that if we're going to really start locking people up for having studios in Nashville, we're going to be locking up a lot of people, and a lot of the people that make Nashville Nashville. I mean, you know, you don't have to look far from interviews of famous Nashville area musicians before you will find somewhere in the interview an acknowledgement that they have a home studio in their house.
Now, is that what is at stake, locking people up or shutting their business down? I mean, could it come to putting someone in jail? Is that what you're saying?
Shutting businesses down, but for a lot of people, the way you start a business in the first place is by having it in your home. I think we did a survey, and about 52% of nationwide businesses are registered as home-based businesses. So if you want people to be generating businesses in the first place, you need them to give them a place to start.
All right, let's go to Jane. Hello, Jane.
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, my comment on this, these neighbors need to get a life. My mother was 99 when she died. And when my father died, she had to start taking her sewing in her basement room to buy her medicine and things like that. The neighbors didn't say anything.
So you're saying they should have the right to operate a business out of their house?
It depends on what it is. But look, my husband and I had to live at the Hilton for a month. And y'all, they need to look at the prostitution stuff that goes on in hotels. Now, I know somebody has a Airbnb.
Right.
And has nothing but the finest guests.
Okay.
Better than you see in a hotel, I'll tell you that.
All right. So here we have somebody, I guess, supporting the right of neighbors to have all kinds of businesses. But, all right, so this was filed. You said there's a motion to dismiss coming up in March. That's a motion by Metro to dismiss the lawsuit you're filing. So that's generally at the very early stages of the lawsuit, right? The motion to dismiss. Do you feel like you survived that? Do we get to the next level? Or what are your thoughts about, you know, again, how long this will take, and when we might actually see a change, or when we may know that this isn't going to change?
I don't know how long it'll take, but we're confident the motion or our lawsuit should survive. There's plenty of Tennessee case law out there saying that you have a right to earn a living, and that should certainly apply when Metro is trying to stop people from earning a living out of their own homes.
Kelsey Hall says the only reason this is an issue is because the government wants their share of the money from home-based businesses. Is that, what do you think of the comment there from Kelsey Hall?
Well, I mean, these are two people that want to have a business and pay their taxes. They're more than willing to give the government its fair share and contribute to the local economy, but they're not allowed to even do that. So we're kind of past the government just wanting its cut. It really is a difficult thing to justify when you think about it.
Our client Pat is actually stuck between a rock and a hard place right now because as she gets older, it's becoming harder for her to work a full-time schedule. And if she isn't able to work full-time and not work out of her home, she's not going to be able to work at all. So she's probably going to have to sell her house and start living off Social Security instead of contributing to the tax base here in Nashville.
Let's go to Chance. Hello, Chance.
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
So I am actually your anonymous complainant in the case for the recording studio. Nice to meet you.
Wow, okay. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
I live a street over, and I went through the proper channels. I got my LLC formed with the state. I got my Davidson County business license, and I went to codes to make sure that everything was on the up and up, and I had everything in place that I needed to be. And I run a small computer business with one employee, and at the time we got to the codes, of course, they put a big stop to it and said, no, you can't do this. So at that point, I began investigating what other businesses were in our neighborhood, and that's how the complaint came about.
So you wanted to operate a business out of your home. You were told you couldn't.
Went through the proper channels. Davidson County issued me a business license at my address.
Right.
For my LLC with the state. And when I went to make sure everything was okay with codes, I was told absolutely not.
And so then what if this passed and this law were changed? Would that impact your feeling about, I guess, the recording studio and your ability to operate your business?
Oh, absolutely. We have to rent a space now. You know, we have to at least every month, and a home mortgage. You know, and something that could easily be operated out of the spare room of our home.
All right. So you filed the anonymous complaint in the. Well, that's very good that you called. Do you have any other concern? Is there any other issue here before I ask them to comment? Any other thought you have?
No, nothing personal against them at all. It's more just against the system and the process.
Okay. All right. What do you think of that? So here you have the guy that filed the complaint. We now know.
First thing, Chase, if you want to contact us, you're more than welcome to do so. beacontn.org. You can click on the case submission page. I'd love to continue the dialogue. But I mean, I do think this highlights the problem. I mean, Chase agrees this. Chance, or is it Chance or Chase? I can't remember. But he agrees that this is
Chance.
Did I say Chase? It's Chance. Yeah, go ahead.
But he agrees that this is a problem and wants to do something about it. But I mean, we have a situation now where this wasn't even a complaint that was grounded in something that Lidge had actually done to his neighborhood. It was a complaint that was designed to draw attention to the issue. But that just underscores our concern all the way along that this man's business, by which he provides for himself and his little girl, was cruelly taken away from him based on not an actual concern that he was doing something harmful to the neighborhood.
I'd be curious to know what codes told him about his business made it so that he couldn't work out of his home, because they allow a lot of home-based businesses.
And do you feel like if you won this case that he would be allowed to operate that business, or you don't know?
Well, it depends on what it is, but
He said it was something about a computer repair or something.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the law tends to draw a bright line about not seeing clients, and my guess is for his computer repair business, he wanted to have clients come to his home. It's an interesting story. I mean, I think that what the Apple computer was invented in a home garage, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So computers have a long and storied tradition of being a home business. So I'm certainly sympathetic with his complaint. But again, if you want to talk, beacontn.org, I'd love to hear more about your story.
All right, we're going to take a break. If you're on the line, hold on. Several calls, a couple of lines open if you want to call in. 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Also streaming live on our Facebook page. Put a comment in the comments section, and I will read some of those comments out loud. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.